Right, so it's been a while since I covered TrueWise products, so I'm back with something pretty recent and probably not that widely distributed yet. These are from the same guys that gave you the AG Cotsubu. It's the AG Uzura. It promises to be an upgraded Cotsubu, bringing in basically extra features such as ambient modes and active noise cancellation. So without further ado, let's get into a review of the AG Uzura. Now I would show you the box of the AG Uzura if I had them, but because I bought them used, again, there's no box for me to show you. There's also almost no documentation of it that I can find on the internet so far, so I can't show you any pictures of it as well. Good luck finding it. But I expect it to be similar to the box of the AG Cotsubu. Check my review on that for an idea of AG's packaging style, which I expect to be very similar on the Uzura. What you do get included with the AG Uzuras are a whole 5 sizes of Final E ear tips. These are not the TrueWise optimized types that you could find on the SZE 3000 or the Cotsubu. However, they are still Final E ear tips, which are quite useful for your other IMs, so I could always do with a few more of these. You will also get the obligatory USB-C charge cable. It's basic, but it works, although I forgot to bring it home, so it's now in Japan. Can't show you. Refer to my Cotsubu review for how it looks. Now, there's also supposed to be a manual, but it wasn't included in my used package. But you can download it on AG's website, so no biggie. And here is the case of the Uzura. Kind of a pebble shape, I guess, but it's a bit more plump than the likes of, say, the ZE 3000. It's, instead of a mud-like brown color of the Cotsubu that I got last time, this time I chose this coral color, which in the light like this, I would call sky blue. It's got a matte texture, although it still attracts some sweat as you see. Feels nice though. And of course there's an AG logo on the top here. And you've got a button on the bottom for basically resetting the Uzuras as well as checking in with the battery, which I will criticize though because the back has the USB-C port and the LED, which is really an awkward position. It should be that the LED is the front of the case and the USB-C charge port should be at the bottom. The LED of the Uzura shines white for most of its functions. It flashes when you open up the case. And it does stay on when you are charging it until it is full. Only when the battery is low will it actually shine red. Now for the Uzura themselves. On the front, they actually look pretty nice, But it's when you turn to the side where you can see the girth of this TrueWise earbud. Like the buds themselves, they feel a little thick. Actually, they are quite thick. And the nozzle here, as you can see, it's quite stubby. The fit on this is still decent, but not as good as the Cotsubu. It goes in my ears fine and it's quite comfortable, but I find myself fiddling with it a lot more because it just doesn't stay in as securely. Overall though, the Uzuras look sleek and minimalistic. They're light and comfy. The thickness here does mean that they stick out a little and aren't as good for sleep use as the Cotsubu. The stylus LEDs are a little small, I'd say. They shine red when charging in the case and flash white when in pairing. And no, they will not periodically flash whilst you're using them. AG advertises about 8 hours of battery life with the Uzura, and I've been traveling a lot with them, including using them with music and the ANC on at the same time, even taking it on a few plane flights. And I can say that the battery is probably closer to 6 hours than 8. Still pretty good, and both the time it takes to charge the earbuds in the case are closer to 1 hour than the stated 2 hours on the AG website. The mic on the AG Uzura is much like most other TrueWise microphone setups. It's pretty bad. My voice is muted, distorted, slightly metallic, and tinny sounding. This would do for some basic calls, but I wouldn't make any important meetings through this.
Ambient sound. Noise cancelling off. Noise cancelling on. Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth pairing. Bluetooth connected.
So going on to the features, you've got Bluetooth 5.2, it supports AAC and SBC codecs. However, there is no aptX support, which I suspect comes from the fact that the AG Uzura is not using a Qualcomm chip in here, but it's actually some in-house alternative. I don't take much issue with the lack of aptX. However, these in-house electronics, they do not supply enough volume to the Uzura. And I really wish there was a bit more volume headroom in these, because when you're out, you're near like construction or in a really loud place, even with the ANC on and the music playing, I really wish I could bump the Uzura up a notch in terms of volume, but it's just not there. But thanks to that though, you do get ANC and ambient mode for about $50. It's just okay though. First is the ANC. It's an interesting take. So AG markets these as not having that sort of nausea-inducing feeling like the competitors tend to do with their ANC. And this is true. I don't feel that suction feeling in my ears when turning on ANC modes like the Moondrop Nekocake gave me. However, this kind of feels like a cop-out for the ANC just being pretty weak. It's more like dampening the surrounding environment than isolating it from your ears. Another issue here is that there's a persistent noise floor when the ANC is on that I can hear. That's not great, but I mean the ANC is still enough to drown out droning noises, especially stuff like airplane noise. This works quite nice for that. And if you do have that nauseous feeling from the other stronger ANC True Wireless earphones, then the Uzura is for you. The ambient mode here is also nicely done. It doesn't boost upper mid-range frequencies too much that you feel like everything kind of sounds like it's being played through a metal pipe. And it gives you just enough of the outside sounds. My gripe here is, again, the weakness of it. Sure, the ambient mode is not as jarring as others, but it's also a little bit too subtle that I find it only marginally useful. Now this would be a problem, right, if we got to choose the level of noise isolation and the level of ambient sound to pipe through into your ears. But no, you just get one level, and the level you get is pretty weak. There's also like no companion app to like configure anything or do any EQ of the Uzura. All of these modes are switched by holding the touchpads of the Uzura for 2 seconds, which the touchpads themselves are not as accurate as the Cotsubu and ZE3000. I often have to like repeat commands for it to actually register. One nice thing here is that if you are in the ANC or the ambient modes and like a very large sound happens outside, usually when the mic on the Uzura can't filter it out, it will disable the modes for a brief period. It ducks out, right? And come back in a bit later. A feature that I only see in like more premium offerings such as the Galaxy Buds series. So that's pretty cool. Now let's get to listening prerequisites. Since there's no companion app, there's also no firmware updates for the Uzura, so what you get is what you'll use forever, basically. Now as for tip rolling, to be honest, I never got a perfect fit with the Uzura. Something about this shape and the nozzle made it very hard for it to get a good seal in my ear. The stock Final E tips didn't work, and the best I could come up are these Final E for True Wireless ear tips from the ZE3000. Maybe you'll have better luck with the Uzura's fit, but for me it was a little finicky. Now with all that out of the way, let's get to the sound of the AG Uzura. Going to the sound, I would describe the overall sound signature of the Uzura as just warm, with a bit of bass emphasis. Nice consumerist sound, that's more suited for casual listening. So starting with the bass, it's more emphasized in the mid-bass region, hits with sort of a soft impact, and it has a decent amount of decay. It's sort of the centerpiece on the Uzura for the most part, being the most present in the mix. Its weakness here is the bass detail, which could use some work for right now. Sort of the bass hits are a bit one note. It doesn't invade the lower mid-range too much and is in general pretty mellow. like the Cotsubu that precedes it. The mid-range of the Uzura is relaxed and suited for long listening sessions. The lower mid-range here, it has a good amount of warmth that I quite enjoy. It's very relaxed, very easygoing, without being too warm to the point where it sounds just overbearing. Going to the upper mid-range, it's not as emphasized. People who are used to harmony levels of peanut gain may find this upper mid-range presentation a little recessed. I'm mostly fine with it, except for that I wish it had a little bit more bite and clarity. Something that the Uzura sort of eschews in pursuit of a comfy and warm sound. With drive-in here, it can pick up micro detail as you can hear with the mid-range, but it just really doesn't try to show it that often, and it does leave me wanting for more at times. Now the treble range on the Uzura is reassuringly unimpressive, in that it's enough to give the needed clarity, or even if only at a basic level, without going overboard or being too subdued that it's dull and muffled. It avoids sounding overly dark like its predecessor, the Cotsubu, and is an overall a slight improvement. The soundstage width of the Uzura is decidedly average, neither too wide or too narrow, it's just fine. A basic level of imaging and soundstage height exists, but it's not much more than rudimentary at best. Technical ability on the Uzura is in line with the Truwa sets that it competes with within the price tag. You get sufficient macro detail retrieval, whilst micro detail is often sort of smoothed off or just omitted. Perhaps not by the drive itself, but by the electronics of the Truwa's earphones. The in-house chip that I talked about. The Uzuras, they aren't really the best at handling EQ, but you could play around with the mid-range and highs a little to get a bit more presence if you want. For the bass, not so much. So let's compare the Uzura to its big brother in the parent company final with the ZE3000. For the accessories, I give them both a tie due to them having sort of similar unboxing experiences, the same basic USB-C cable, final E tips on the Uzuras, and final E for Truwas on the ZE3000. Features-wise, the Uzura one-ups the ZE3000 by having, the ambient and ANC modes, but for the sound, I think the ZE3000 is the clear winner. It supports aptX, whereas the Uzura only has AAC and SPC, but the important part is the Qualcomm circuitry that is powering the ZE3000 allows it a bit more volume headroom. And sound-wise, the ZE3000 is more bombastic. It's warm, but its bass is still quite lively and there's a good amount of clarity to the sound, which in my review, I did say that it sounds closer to sort of an E5000 than an E3000. The Uzura's versatility with its modes and its still quite decent warm sound presentation still sets it apart enough. It fights the ZE3000's sound quality with quality of life additions and 2 hours more of battery life. Which set you will go with will depend on your priorities for what a true wire set should do. Now here is something more in league with the Uzura. It's the Moondrop Nekocake. Accessories wise, both just give you ear tips and a cable, with the Nekocake going for the anime waifu aesthetic and the Uzura being more minimalist and consumerist. I'd give the win to the AG Uzura for the build though, with the better feeling plastic and just overall a better feeling build. The ANC on both are pretty meh. With the Nekocake, it's somewhat more effective, but indeed, the Uzura's lighter ANC implementation, it doesn't give me that suction feeling like the Nekocakes do. The Uzura also has the ambient mode, which is cool, but you can argue that the Nekocake's terrible isolation allows you to hear your surroundings anyway, so there's no need for an ambient mode. Now on the sound side, the Nekocake takes the cake, for the most part, with its sort of warm bright sound and a more pronounced peanut gain, giving it good emphasis for vocals. Whilst the Uzura, it sounds comparatively laid back, in turn, being a bit less intense and more suited for longer listening sessions. The Uzura also has more base impact than the Nekocake, which is downright sort of anemic. Considering that the Nekocake can be had for much less, especially in used condition nowadays, I'd give the slight edge over to it due to the value proposition. But the Uzura is also worth checking out for its more relaxed sound, the extra ambient mode, and just overall a better build quality and experience. AG had set out to make a sequel to the Cotsubu, packing in more features at roughly the same price point, and they mostly did what they set out to do. The addition of an ambient mode and ANC is definitely a welcomed one, though somewhat weak and lacking any customization for a companion amp. I lament the downgrade to the codecs being used and its volume headroom being reduced, but nonetheless, the Uzura is a solid addition to AG's TrueWise lineup. If only they would start distributing it in more markets. And that is the end of yet another review. As always, I'll leave the links to the music I use in the description, as well as links to my Patreon, where you can support me and donate to me so that I can get more stuff in for review. Donating to Patreon also means that you get access to extra content, behind the scenes footage, any sort of extra photography of the products if and when they are available. Thank you to all the patrons who have supported me. Expect more reviews coming soon, of course. I'm going to go back to a few more hyped releases rather than just whatever I can get my hands on. And of course, like the video if you like it. Comment if you have any question, any suggestion, any sort of, notion, feel free to participate in the comment section. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this kind of content. Hit the bell button, of course, so that the videos get delivered to your feed. And if nothing else, then I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. This is Lumerion, signing off.